GPT-5.6, Claude Opus 4.8, and Gemini 3.53 of the biggest names in AI right now, and all three companies are telling us that their model is faster, smarter, more reliable, and better at completing real work. But which one is actually the strongest? I've been looking through the official announcements, model documentation, benchmark results, and, more importantly, what these models are actually designed to do. And the answer is not as simple as picking the model with the highest score on one chart. In fact, before we compare them, there's something slightly misleading about this entire matchup. GPT 5.6 is a full model family. Sol is the flagship, Terra is the balanced option, and Luna is the faster and cheaper version. Inside ChatGPT, GPT 5.6, Sol powers the more advanced reasoning modes, while Sol Pro is the highest capability option for especially difficult and long-running tasks. Claude Opus 4.8, meanwhile, is no longer Anthropic's absolute top model. Anthropic now positions Claude Fable 5 above it for the highest available capability. Opus 4.8 is still a premium model, but it is primarily aimed at complex coding, enterprise work, and reliable agentic workflows. And Gemini 3.5 is even more complicated, because the model currently available is Gemini 3.5 Flash. Google has announced Gemini 3.5 Pro, but its official model pages still describe it as coming soon. So, in reality, we're recomparing OpenAI's latest flagship with Anthropic's previous generation premium workhorse and Google's speed-focused frontier model. That doesn't make the comparison useless. It just means we need to understand what kind of strongest we're talking about. If we're talking about raw, general-purpose intelligence, my current winner is GPT 5.6. OpenAI has clearly focused on making GPT 5.6 better at completing entire projects rather than simply answering individual questions. It can reason through a problem, use tools, write and execute code, inspect the results, identify mistakes, and continue working without needing constant instructions. That distinction matters. Older AI models often looked intelligent during the first few minutes of a task. The real problems appeared 20 or 30 steps later. They forgot the original goal, repeated work, broke something that was already functioning, or confidently announced that the project was finished when it clearly was. GPT 5.6 appears to be designed around reducing exactly that kind of failure. OpenAI reports state-of-the-art results across coding agents, browser tasks, computer use, cybersecurity, scientific reasoning, and professional knowledge work. GPT 5.6 Sol reached 80 on the Artificial Analysis Coding Agent Index, while its Ultra configuration scored 91.9% on Terminal, Bench 2.1. OpenAI also reports 92.2% on BrowseComp and 62.6% on Oswald 2.0. These benchmarks aren't perfect, but together they suggest that GPT 5.6 is unusually strong at combining reasoning with action, and that's probably the biggest difference between this generation and the models we were using a year ago. We are moving away from AI that simply tells us what to do and toward AI that can actually do the work. Give GPT 5.6 a software project, a research question, a collection of documents, or a complicated spreadsheet, and it's increasingly capable of turning that messy starting point into a finished result. It's not perfect, and it still needs supervision, but it feels less like a chatbot and more like a general-purpose digital worker. Claude Opus 4.8 is different. I wouldn't describe Claude as the most aggressive problem solver in this comparison. I'd describe it as the most thoughtful collaborator. Claude's biggest advantage has never been that it produces the flashiest answer. Its advantage is that it tends to understand what the user is trying to achieve. It's especially good when the task involves subtle instructions, a consistent writing style, a large amount of context, or decisions where uncertainty needs to be clearly explained. Anthropic placed a lot of emphasis on honesty with Opus 4.8. According to the company, the model is more likely to flag weak evidence, questionable assumptions, and uncertainty instead of pretending that everything is fine. Early enterprise testers also highlighted its ability to carry context and style direction through long sessions. That may not sound as exciting as winning a math benchmark, but in real professional work, it can be more valuable. Imagine giving an AI hundreds of pages of contracts, financial documents, product specifications, or source code. A model that gives you a confident but incorrect answer can be dangerous. A model that says the information required to answer this is missing is often far more useful. Claude Opus 4.8 also remains extremely capable at agentic coding and browser-based work. Anthropic cites an 84% result on online Mind to Web And companies testing the model have praised its ability to use tools efficiently and complete long workflows without drifting away from the goal. For writing, I would still give Claude a slight advantage. GPT 5.6 is excellent at structure. It can organize information, create polished reports, follow templates, and transform rough material into something presentation ready, but Claude often produces language that feels calmer, more deliberate, and less mechanically optimized. When I want a business report, technical plan, or deeply structured analysis, GPT 5.6 would probably be my first choice. When I want an essay, a nuanced explanation, a long script, or writing that needs to preserve a particular voice, Claude Opus 4.8 is extremely difficult to beat. Then we have Gemini 3.5 Flash, which may be the most interesting model here. On paper, calling a Flash model the strongest AI sounds strange. Flash models are normally designed around speed and cost, rather than maximum intelligence. But Gemini 3.5 Flash is much closer to flagship performance than its name suggests. Google says it outperforms the earlier Gemini 3.1 Pro on several difficult coding and agentic benchmarks, including Terminal, Bench 2.1, and MakeCP Atlas. Google also claims it can generate output around 4 times faster than other frontier models. It supports text, images, audio, and video input with a context window of up to 1 million tokens. This is where Gemini becomes dangerous to its competitors. It may not beat GPT-5.6 Sol on the hardest reasoning task. It may not match Claude's writing style, but it can deliver very strong intelligence at high speed, process enormous amounts of multimodal information, and operate inside Google's ecosystem. That ecosystem advantage shouldn't be underestimated. Gemini can connect naturally with Google Search, Workspace, Android, YouTube, Maps, and Google's developer platforms. Computer use is now built directly into Gemini 3.5 Flash, allowing developers to create agents that interact with websites and software interfaces. So while GPT-5, the 6th of May, be the stronger individual model, Gemini may become the AI that reaches the largest number of people and performs the highest number of real-world actions. Let's make this practical. Suppose I am building a complicated application from scratch. I need the AI to plan the architecture, write the code, run tests, fix errors, manage tools, and continue working for several hours. Among these 3 models, I am choosing GPT 5.6. Suppose I already have a huge codebase, and I need an AI to understand the existing design. Make careful changes, explain the risks, and avoid rewriting everything unnecessarily. Claude Opus 4.8 becomes extremely attractive. Suppose I am operating thousands of AI tasks every day and need strong coding performance without paying flagship model prices or waiting a long time for every response. Gemini 3.5 Flash may be the best option. For deep research, the answer also depends on the workflow. GPT 5.6 is probably the strongest at taking a broad objective and autonomously turning it into a structured research process. Claude is excellent when the research requires careful reading, nuanced interpretation, and transparent uncertainty. Gemini becomes especially powerful when the task involves current information, Google Search, extremely large documents, video, audio, and other multimodal sources. For creative work, Gemini has the broadest native media foundation. Claude remains excellent at language and tone. GPT 5.6 sits somewhere between them, but it's arguably the best at turning creative ideas into polished, usable deliverables. And then there's cost. The most intelligent model isn't automatically the most useful model. If a premium model produces a result that's 5% better, but costs several times more and takes much longer, that advantage may disappear in a real product. Gemini 3.5 Flash is built around this calculation. It offers a very strong balance of intelligence, speed, context, and scale. GPT 5.6 is also placing much more emphasis on efficiency, with OpenAI claiming that its models complete tasks with fewer tokens and lower estimated cost than several competing frontier systems. Claude Opus 4.8 remains a premium option, priced for work where reliability and quality matter, more than running the highest possible volume. So, who wins? Among the 3 models named in this comparison, I would give the overall crown to GPT 5.6. It currently offers the strongest combination of reasoning, coding, tool use, computer interaction, knowledge work, and the ability to complete complicated tasks from beginning to end. But that doesn't mean GPT 5.6 wins every category. Claude Opus 4.8 is the model I would choose for careful collaboration, natural writing, long context analysis, and work where admitting uncertainty is more important than producing a confident answer. Gemini 3.5 Flash is the model I would choose for speed, scale, multimodal input, enormous context, and deep integration with the Google ecosystem. The simplest way I can explain it is this. GPT 5.6 feels like the strongest problem solver. Claude Opus 4.8 feels like the most thoughtful professional partner. Gemini 3.5 Flash feels like the fastest and most scalable AI engine, and there's one final twist. This comparison may already be outdated very soon. Claude Opus 4.8 isn't Anthropic's most powerful model anymore, and Gemini 3.5 Pro hasn't fully entered the competition yet. A truly fair battle would be GPT 5.6 Sol Pro against Claude Fable 5 and Gemini 3.5 Pro, so GPT-5 the 6th of May be today's winner, but I wouldn't call it the permanent king. In AI, the throne doesn't belong to one company for very long.